My name is Samantha. I'm going to tell you how all this really began.
Every journey begins with a single step, and Origins was step 1 in the greatest zombies arc ever told. Origins released August 27th, 2013 as the finale to the Black Ops 2 zombie series and the final old-gen console map to be released from Treyarch. Since its inception, it has been a constant in the holy top 3 of zombie maps, seeing some of the most critical acclaim ever. Origins was an ambitious and expansive title, delivering more content than any zombies map had ever seen. It sets up the Black Ops 3 storyline, introduced our new, old characters, and solidified the quest-style map as the modern zombies format. As far as gameplay goes, it made waves with tons of new content, like 4 wonder weapons and an extremely complex Easter egg. Origins is so loved by the community that many people even tend to put it above criticism. And despite being a masterpiece, Origins is actually held in a little bit too high of a regard. That is to say, just because it's fantastic doesn't mean it's perfect. And so as always, today in Zombies Retrospective, we will be taking a critical approach to our review and not just looking at the good and amazing, but also the bad and ugly of Origins. The best place to start with the breakdown of this map is with the intro cutscene. If the Mob of the Dead intro is debatably the best cutscene of all time, Origins is actually the best. While Mob's intro sets up the storyline very personally, showing you the traits of each individual character, Origins takes a world-building approach, setting up the macro details. It sets up a whole new universe in just 4 minutes. And what's coolest of all is that Samantha, the main protagonist of Black Ops 1, introduces you to this brand new story. She explains the war and Germany's desire for power. She explains the discovery of Element 115, the dreadful outbreak of the Templar zombies, and that it's now up to a few elite soldiers to contain it. Now, imagine it's 2013 again and you don't know who these 4 soldiers are. And then boom, out of nowhere, M Shadows of Avenged Sevenhold chimes in to introduce you to the new and improved Tank Dempsey.
Let's take a moment and breathe the
For what is essentially the start of the modern zombie storyline, I can't think of a better introduction. Heavy metal, a fan favorite character, and some fantastic cinematics. We've known these characters for almost 5 years now, but it's here where we see a different personality from the one-dimensional stereotypes of Black Ops 1. And as we see some amazingly choreographed moments, we then get to Richthofen as the 4 finally meet. He's just finished dissecting who we would come to learn is Maxis. And keep in mind, this is the guy that just got control of the ether and buried. So players who had beaten the Transit Crew storyline would have quickly learned that this is again something new. And so it's in this first cutscene where the most solid foundation is laid for future maps. Instead of brand new characters like with the Chaos Crew in Black Ops 4, we're introduced to 6 people we already know, but they're different timeline versions of themselves. Craig Houston and the writing team at Treyarch reimagined these characters perfectly. They're so fresh, but familiar. Now, today's episode is going to get a bit crazy. Origins has a heap of content, and because so much of it is brand new, we have to cover it all. So it's gonna be long, and I will break this video up into a few sections. First, we'll look at atmosphere and setting, then innovation and gameplay from the perspective of the casual player, then we'll dive into the Easter egg, and lastly, we'll take a look at the storyline. Origins can be played in different ways, so the Easter egg split is going to be crucial for a fair analysis. One of the coolest things about Origins is that the intro ends with the robot stomping down on the lab, and then the gameplay begins in that exact same moment. Your characters in the robot are where they were exactly 3 seconds ago. This helps flow from cutscene to gameplay and is the first of many small details that help with immersion. But even the setup in the first few rounds is super compelling. Our characters spawn in confused and unsure about what's going on, just like the player. If they're by themselves, they will have some neat monologues about continuing their mission, but in co-op we just get the coolest dialogues. Regardless of the number of players, things are going relatively smoothly until Samantha begins speaking. As you play through the early rounds, she insists that you aid her, and this really sets the overall tone for what Origins will be. Now, if you're planning on beating the Easter egg, it is immaculate. The early round quotes help to further set the stage with the storyline, but many people claim that it's a little bit too in your face for a casual game. That's because no matter how you choose to play, you are forced to listen to the quest. And this is something that I think might actually hurt the map a bit. So back in the Mob retrospective, we looked at how gameplay and storyline are intertwined immaculately. Going to Pack-a-Punch on the plane, for example, is part of the storyline, and so being forced into the quest works because the two are so closely connected. Taking the plane to Pack-a-Punch is the story, and so being forced into the quest works because the two are so connected. But Origins isn't like this. In Origins, the devs decided to give the player more freedom. You can choose not to pick up a single staff part, and this makes the map more free than Mob. The problem with this method, however, is that the storyline is shoved in your face no matter what you choose to do. Again, even if you don't do anything. And I think that this does detract from what Origins is just a little bit. Origins is a battlefield on the western front of World War I, and at times the setting feels underutilized. The actual setting of a confusing, war-torn countryside feels hijacked as soon as Samantha starts speaking. She takes hold of the narrative completely by round 4, and anything to do with this being an interesting battlefield seems to be lost. The map structure becomes one-dimensionally set on saving Samantha or her being mad that you're not helping. And so again, if you're planning on doing the Easter egg, it is fantastic, but some people looking for a casual game of zombies will find this frustrating. But other than my gripes with Samantha, atmospherically, Origins is a sound map. There are different weather patterns which add variation, and while it's not beautiful, it does an adequate job of looking as good as it can while staying true to one of the worst human experiences of all time. But snow rounds always look pretty, and the skyline on Origins is powerful. A giant zeppelin commands the sky, tons of planes are up in the air dogfighting, and an ominous storm cloud sits over the center of the map. Oh, and did I mention that there are 1,000 feet tall robots? The robots are one of the most ambitious and map-defining elements of Origins, and their atmospheric contribution is blended perfect with the gameplay. They serve to create a sense of grandiosity, and by the way, did I mention that this was on the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3? And lastly, it's also worth noting that Origins has one of the best soundtracks to any zombies map ever. Locations all have different backgrounds, so riding the tank or being in the crazy place will have a different tone compared to running through the trenches. The score is so well integrated into the map you might not even notice it, and that's a sign it's doing a perfect job. So Origins has a great atmospheric foundation to set up the gameplay. While the storyline is shoved in your face, unlike on Mob, the actual steps of the Easter egg are not, and this is something that Origins does well for only being the second ever quest map. Despite having some of the most depth, Origins can actually be played quite casually. It's not Kino level easy, but Origins is simpler to navigate than Transit, Die Rise, and debatably even Moon. To turn on Pack-a-Punch, players just need to navigate their way through the map, turning on 6 generators. Once the map is open and all 6 generators are turned on, players will have access to the Mystery Box, 5 perk machines, and Pack-a-Punch. Oh, and there's also the brand new addition of Wonder Fizz. Wonder Fizz is a perk variation of the Mystery Box, where for 1,500 points you can get a random perk. This features all buyable perks plus Deadshot, Double Tap, Electric Cherry, and most excitingly, PhD Flopper. The relatively simple process makes Origins very palatable for a new player. They can spend a ton of time just playing classic zombies with no tutorials needed. But there's still more simple innovation. The box saw a ton of new weapons. The Ballista, KSG, Scar, Scorpion, and MG08 still stand as fan favorites. The dev team even added a small Easter egg where if you collect 3 orbs with the Maxis drone, you would get a free Pack-a-Punch version. But of course, nothing is more true to Origins than the upgraded Mauser, the Boom Hilda. The Boom Hilda is one of the only times zombies has steered away from an explosive starting pistol. And I mean, come on, it's a fan favorite for good reason. Origins doesn't end there, however. One of the beautiful things with this map is that the level of complexity and depth can scale to a player's desire. Once the previous methods have been mastered, a player will likely want to dip their toes into something more advanced. And on Origins, one should look no further than the staffs. If there is one great strength of Treyarch that they have managed to deliver on in every single game, it's wonder weapons. And the staffs on Origins are Treyarch's crowning achievement. Origins has 4 elemental staffs, each with their own unique attributes and abilities. For a new player, building a single staff will likely take some tutorials, but shouldn't be too hard. As long as the player is capable of defeating the Panzer, the fire staff is quite attainable. All that's left is to turn on generator 6, grab the disc in the same area, shoot down the plane to get the 3rd staff piece. From there, you need to open the mound, take the gramophone to the spawn tunnel, travel to the crazy place, pick up the firestone, head back through the portal, locate the mound disc, place the gramophone again, and head all the way down to the staff's crafting spot. Oh, okay, well, maybe it's not that easy. What I'm getting at is building most of the staffs doesn't require skill, but rather knowledge, and that's what actually makes it accessible to new players. Ice is probably the easiest, only requiring the ability to get to round 9 or 10 for the snow rounds. With fire, you need to be able to kill a panzer, the tank requires mobility skills, and probably most difficult, the wind requires a bit of accuracy, patience, and timing. The regular staffs aren't handed out to you, but they're easy enough that anyone into zombies enough to buy DLC should be able to figure it out. And once a player has learned the staffs, there are a million other things they can choose to do. Picking up the rocket gen 2 and bringing it to the church altar can simply be a fun side quest. You simply need to cleanse it with melee kills, return it back to its place without stepping in mud to get the G-Strike, a monkey bomb-like ordnance strike that has the robot fire missiles on a desired location. Players simply need to get melee kills to cleanse it and return it without stepping in mud to get the G-Strike. The G-Strike is awesome. It's a monkey bomb-like ordnance strike that has the robots fire missiles on a desired location. Or players could try to fill soul chests. Since robots reset them and they usually take more than 1 round of zombies to fill, there is a great tension to this step, especially as the player is forced to train in a tight mud-filled area. Completing all 4 then gives you the upgraded melee weapon, the 1-inch punch. And there's also 3 other smaller challenges which can give you a max ammo, free pack-a-punch gun, or double tap. Also, let's not forget dig sites. First of all, dig sites on their own are a fantastic, fun addition to the map. But digging up 30 items with the regular shovel will unlock the player a golden shovel, which is capable of finding better loot. One of the things included in this is a golden helmet, which stops all damage from giant robot feet. And most iconically, players can also search for red dig sites when using the new zombie blood drop to find a perk bottle, which adds an additional slot to the player's 4, up to a total of 8. And so just to give you a better idea of how much content is in Origins, let me say it this way. What we just fired through in like 4 paragraphs would normally be enough to fill almost an entire retrospective. And we're not even close to being done. And so even for a casual player, there is a lot to do on this map. The vessel for Maxis, the opening of the... Oh my god, okay, I've played this map way too much. What I'm getting at is that Origins allows itself to be wide open for many different levels of complexity. And in terms of gameplay, I think this is why it's often regarded above Mob. Mob is linear, where Origins is completely open-ended. But of course you can go even deeper with Origins by upgrading the staffs. Once you've crafted your staff, or even all 4, you can choose to ultimate them. Each elemental staff has a crazy place puzzle, an overworld puzzle, and then a color wheel spinning puzzle in the main chamber. After zapping the staff's respective orb, you must then charge it with kills in the crazy place. And while it is a lengthy process, the map delivers. The ultimate staffs are not only some of the most iconic, but also some of the best wonder weapons in all of zombies. They have a single blast, which is basically an improved version of the elemental shot. The trigger can also be held down for a devastating charge blast. Plus, they work as melee weapons and revive tools, with the back end being capable of instantly picking up teammates. While amongst each other, the staffs actually are quite balanced, but they all excel in their own ways. The ultimate lightning staff, Kimmett's Bite, is the best safety weapon. Shooting at the ground will instantly kill anything in front of you, but the charged shot is the weakest of the 4. It shoots this orb of what is essentially a weaker Wonderwaff shot, and it's really only capable of killing a few zombies. This is a fair balance as to how friendly the normal shot is, though. Also, it's incredibly effective at killing the Panzer. And as a side note, I think it's the coolest because when you shoot it, thunder can be heard. So overall, it's just a beautiful wonder weapon. And lastly, it's also worth noting that it has the most ammo at 190 8. Now the Fire Staff is the most balanced of the 4. Its normal shot isn't quite as fast to kill as lightning, but its charged shot is significantly better. It spews magma on the ground and is able to kill zombies in the small area where the magma sits. Beginner players tend to gravitate towards this for its balance and because it's easy to build. It also has the second most amount of ammo and is insane for killing panzers. Some people say the fire is better than the lightning for panzers, and honestly, they're both so good I can hardly even tell. Now the Ice Staff, All's arrow, is the complete opposite to the lightning. It has a very slow time to kill, essentially working similarly to the Winter's Howl. If you don't have an understanding of its mechanics, it's incredibly easy to die with. To use it effectively, you have to predict moments before they arise, and so newer players tend to avoid this one. While completely unforgiving, the Ice Staff makes up for this by having a ridiculously powerful charged shot. It creates a blizzard where anything that walks into it slows and dies. And while this also takes a bit of mastery, it's incredibly effective, being the high round strategy for Origins. Relatively speaking, it's not the best for killing panzers, but a fully charged blizzard will certainly do the trick. And lastly, we have the anomaly of the staffs. Boreas Fury. The upgraded Wind Staff works like a thunder gun, but only up until round 19. In those rounds, it blasts everything out of the way, making it really even safer than lightning. After round 19, however, this effect stops working and it becomes a weird 2-shot kill. With limited ammo, I've always found the Wind Staff to be underpowered because of this. Its charged shot is a more powerful version of the Ice Staff, but the lack of ammo actually makes it less effective overall. And so while still a great weapon, I've just always found the Staff of Wind to serve less of a purpose as the other 3. Also, it is quite noticeably the worst at killing panzers. And so finally, with all the pieces discussed individually, I think we can now finally put everything together and talk about the Easter egg. Because that's exactly what Origins actually does. Origins adds a whole bunch of new features and says, hey, you can do any of these if you want, or do it all together in a series, and that, plus a few extra steps, is your Easter egg. And I think that the way they choose to do this is much more effective than on Mob. Mob is tighter, but also more linear and less replayable. Now, as someone who has done this Easter egg way too many times, I would argue that it is the ultimate test for a zombies fan, especially in solo. It's the separating achievement between casual and advanced players. And that's because Origins is one of the few Easter eggs that has every feature of what actually makes zombies hard. So first of all, Origins takes an insane level of knowledge and understanding. To even beat it, you need to remember 15 possible dislocations, know how to get 12 staff parts along with building the shield Maxistrone and finding the gramophone. Or more like remembering where you put the gramophone. There's also knowledge required for the staff upgrades, like the Crazy Place Wind Staff puzzle. You need to remember which way every single switch goes for lightning, along with the piano step, which is 136 357 246. That number is etched into my brain permanently. And that's just scratching the surface. There is so much to memorize for this egg that it might be harder than some courses you'll take in high school. But then there's the difficulty factor. Origins is hard. Jason Blundell himself, the lead of this map, has stated that Origins is one of the most treacherous maps ever. And that's because along with the 2-down hit system, there are essentially no safe spaces. The entire main chamber is tight with ridiculous spawns, and it's easy to get cornered. The excavation site is covered in mud, and this requires movements to be more technical and precise. The Crazy Place is a constantly shifting nightmare that will eat your soul if you let it. Oh my god, I literally died on the last step there on stream this week. I hate my life. You've also got the Panzer, and while it may be easy with an upgraded staff, still strikes fear into the hearts of most players on round 8. Plus there's giant robots which can step on you. Origins is an intense map, and losing focus for even a moment will often result in a down or game over. So in order to beat the Easter egg, not only do you need the knowledge, but you also need to stay sharp, or all your hard work will be for nothing. But the thing that makes this Easter egg even cooler is that it requires improvisation. See, a lot of modern Easter eggs are actually really linear. That means you can't beat step number 2 until you complete the first step. Origins does not care, however. You can do any staff, the soul chests, or G-strikes in any order. And what's especially cool about this is it forces you to play efficiently. And that's because the sloppier you play, the harder the Easter egg actually gets. For example, if you waste kills in the early game when you could have used them on soul chests or let a robot stomp on one, the entire rounds will shift forward. You'll suddenly find yourself on the later steps heading into challenging and deep water. And this is tough not just because of the rounds. The 1-inch punch stops being a one-shot at round 19, and so this makes the step Wield a Fist of Iron way more challenging any round after. Plus, the deeper you get into the rounds, the harder the final step will be in the Crazy Place. Origins forces you to play fast at times and slow at others, and because of this, you need to improvise to stay efficient and even beat it. That is the true key to this Easter egg. And so with the Origins Easter egg requiring knowledge, skill, and adaptability, this is why it's often considered the ultimate zombies player test. So, is that it? Origins is a 10 out of 10, and we can now move on to Black Ops 3. Cue the Shadows of Evil music.
Streets on flame, it's a mad game, makes you stop and stare.
Well, sadly, no. Listen, this is the map that I have the most experience with, and so in my many hours of playtime, I've noticed quite a few flaws with Origins as well. One of my biggest complaints with Origins is that it's tedious. The first run through in a while can be satisfying, as it's essentially just a collectathon. You're getting all these tiny little pieces, and it is so satisfying. But Origins is hard, and you will die. So with this in mind, I find it infuriating to have to reset on this map. The largest portion of the Easter egg is just dedicated to acquiring things, which isn't always necessarily fun. For example, in the world record speedrun in Solo, the first 35 minutes of the egg is spent on getting stuff. The G-Strike and Fist makes up part of that, but mostly everything else is just going into upgrading the staffs. You're searching dig spots for ice, running into robot feet for wind, riding the tank for lightning, all to have to build everything. And while this is more so a Solo complaint, it can be frustrating no matter what. Especially because once you're done upgrading the staffs, the rest of the Easter egg is pretty straightforward. It's challenging, I suppose, but compared to that one giant first step, it just feels a little underwhelming, I think. So I think it goes without saying that the map would have benefited from only needing one staff to be upgraded per player. And Treyarch would learn from this mistake for when they made Der Eisendrache. Now, the co-op side of things has its own problems, however. While in Solo, it's already mind-bendingly annoying to keep track of the gramophone, this becomes an absolute nightmare as soon as you have to rely on anyone else. So just as a reminder, upon getting the corresponding disc, the gramophone must be laid at a respective tunnel to access the Crazy Place and its crystal. The portal collapses, however, whenever you enter or the gramophone is lifted. And so if a player has left it down somewhere else, you literally can't travel through any other portal. An easy change could have made it so that once you open a portal, it's there for good on each side. This would at the very least save players a lot of time. And honestly, I do think this is one of the poorest designs of the map, which ultimately plays into a larger, more widespread problem. Map layout. Origins is incredibly large, and one of the side effects of this is that traversing the map is time consuming. Oh, wait, we're talking about size of the map. Is Lex getting excited for the Noct reveal? I bet he is. Hi, Lex. Weighing in at 25 Noct Durantotens, Origins is one of the biggest maps we've ever seen, just behind Moon. And while technically Origins has mobility as highlighted, there's nothing that actually helps to consistently save you time. Origins has no shortcuts. Like, there's the tank, which I don't know if I can even pretend like the game devs thought that this would be a useful piece of transportation. I mean, I can outrun it, the zombies can outrun it, so riding it is pretty pointless, and really it only serves to get you the lightning staff parts. And using the portals to save time only works if you're going from spawn to Gen 6 or vice versa. Moving any other way will be less efficient because of the time you spend going up and down each tunnel waiting on portals and navigating the Crazy Place. Now, if you happen to be in the Crazy Place, using the closest tunnel can be useful, but it's sadly still not as efficient as the map could and should be. And so with all that in mind, you're left to run. Run everywhere. This is especially bad as the mud slows you down. Now, running the map with stamina up can still be annoying, but without it, you may as well just let Freya go ahead and off you. So overall, I really feel like there just wasn't enough thought that went into map flow. Another very necessary thing to point out are Templar zombies. I think this is the single biggest complaint of Origins, but really it's just more part of a larger problem of poor layout. Because defeating Templar zombies is not difficult. It's necessary, as you can't pack-a-punch or beat the Easter egg without all the generators on, but it's not hard. Killing 4 zombies standing still is quite easy. What's hard is being at Gen 1, seeing that they are at 6, and needing to run across the entire map to stop them. Not only do you need to traverse this distance, but you'll likely need to turn on a generator again. While I admire the experimentation with this type of mini-boss, I think that Mob did it better. Brutus spawns on you and locks things down, so you actually have the chance to stop him. But Templars spawn far away, and that's their biggest flaw. Like if Templars just spawned near to you and then ran to the closest generator, I don't think anyone would mind them so much. But the way they are, they're so luck dependent and infuriating. Another easy solution would be that they could just not exist and generators would never turn off. That'd be okay too. So Origins certainly has some flaws, but I also don't think these problems are any worse than any of the other greats. Running around Mob for fuel canisters is just as annoying. Gorad's Pack-a-Punch requires a full dragon ride every time, and while breathtaking, it can get repetitive. Even with the Wonder Spheres on Der Reisendrak, I find myself needing to do an absurd amount of running. So the bigger takeaway here is that it's obvious that map flow is something Treyarch has constantly battled with in their upscaling. Now, I can't forgive it, but I at least understand it as part of a series-wide problem. It's sad too because there are a lot of neat ways they could have improved navigation. Like if the robots could eject you to different places around the map depending on which pod you got into. Or if the tank moved faster, portals never collapsed, or if the main chamber had a portal itself. Any one of these additions would have drastically helped Origins in the pursuit of perfection. And there's also the forgotten step of this Easter egg. Now, through a miraculous glitch, players don't actually have to put 3 staffs into the robot heads, but it was originally intended to be as such. In Black Ops 2, to complete the Ascend from Darkness step, you can place the fire staff in the main chamber down 4 times and complete the step. But in Black Ops 3, this glitch was patched. And this is so painstakingly bad that I'm inclined to say that it ruins the Easter egg for me. While the flow of the Easter egg can be slow at times, this portion takes it to a standstill. It literally just forces you to wait to get the right robot. And while we're on the topic, Black Ops 3 Origins has gobblegum, more sticky mud, and a Panzer that eats MP40 bullets for breakfast. And while I don't normally talk about remakes, I did just want to mention that BO3's changes are, in my opinion, bad enough to move Origins down a whole letter tier. Fortunately, however, Treyarch decided to leave the glitch alone, so it's part of the map. And it seriously saves 20 minutes of downtime. Now from here, players are able to run through the rest of the egg and reach Agartha. And as we move to that final ending cutscene, I think it's appropriate that we now touch on storyline. As I said, Origins is, well, literally the origins of the modern story. You have the first arc, which is mostly Jimmy Zielinski following World at War through to Buried, and while the two are connected, Origins marked the beginning of a new narrative. Canonically, Maxis gains power in Buried, and Samantha somehow finds herself in Agartha with a connection to Dimension 63 or something. To my knowledge, the ending cutscene takes players to a time just before Revelations, and that is pretty freaking cool. What's also so neat is the cyclical nature of the storyline. When our 4 heroes meet in the lab, this is the reunification of Primus, the 4 heroes we see at the end of the Rev Easter egg. So Origins sets the stage for everything that happens in Black Ops 3 and 4. While the Easter egg was very poorly received at the end of Black Ops 2, with all the knowledge we have now, it is in fact very neat. But I think as a lasting contribution, the single best part of Origins is actually the introduction of our Primus 4. The Dempsey, Nikolai, Richthofen, and Takeo of Black Ops 1 were fun, but overdone. It's classic over-the-top zombies humor, but the series was evolving and becoming more serious. Origins shows us the best versions of our original anti-heroes. They're nuanced, logical, and practical people. They share thoughts and insecurities, but are very clearly those who we remember. And above all, Richtofen's character change would go on to be the most compelling. His arc is essentially him trying to undo the deeds of his horrible BO1 self. I always find it so neat to hear him talk about the disgust he has for that being. The juxtaposition of the two versions is fascinating, and so overall, despite being a fantastic map, I think the thing that Origins actually did best was introduce us to Primus. You don't need Origins to make Black Ops 3 work, but think how clunky the Giant would have been if that was our first time meeting them. Instead, the reveal of the Giant cutscene was one of the most hype moments in all of Zombies. So, Origins is one of the most influential maps of all time. It solidified Zombies' transition into a large-scale quest-styled experience. It gave us a truly deep Easter egg that integrated some of the most iconic wonder weapons in the entire franchise. It set the stage for the greatest portion of Zombies' history by introducing us to the 4 main characters of the Black Ops 3 arc. And lastly, it's where I found my channel. If it wasn't for Black Ops 2, I likely would never have become a YouTuber. I started on that game with less than 1,000 subscribers and actually finished Origins with over 30,000. But there's no map that helped me more in Black Ops 2 than its final release. BO2 was shaky, and Origins rekindled my passion for zombies. While I loved Mob, Origins was the first map to spark the feeling I had for the series in those early days of World at War. It kept me playing during the break between Black Ops 2 and 3, and of course, who could forget the many speedruns we have shared. So along with it being objectively great, Origins holds a really special place in my heart, and is probably my single favorite facet of any video game ever. And on a larger scale, Origins is the final piece in the puzzle as to what makes Black Ops 2 Zombies so powerful. Transit is the hilarious mess, Town is the casual survival, while Nuketown is the hardcore version. Dire Eyes is the easy high round map, and Buried is the easy quest map. Mob of the Dead is the movie-like cinematic masterpiece, and Origins completes the series with the endless depth in gameplay. And so it goes without saying then that Black Ops 3 wouldn't be complete without Origins. But so clearly is it that Origins and Mob are the two best of this game, and they're also the two maps which most influenced the modern era of zombies. They're two sides of the same coin, very different, but they also share a strong influential connection. When I play Mob, I think this is the greatest zombies map of all time. Yet when I play Origins, I find myself saying the exact same thing. One map achieves greatness through depth in storyline, and the other by depth in gameplay. Regardless though, they still achieve the same outcome. Origins and Mob sit as the foundational pillars as to which all maps after would sit on. And so because of that, I think to put one above the other is impossible. And so, with that said, my final rating for Origins is a 9.7 out of 10. Double S tier.